All right, on behalf of AT&T, we want to welcome y'all to AT&T 28 days. And I'm just so excited to be here, man.
What this brother about to bring to the stage is awesome, man. Y'all used to see him on BET. You can see him on MSN. He's a contributor on MSNBC. One of the smartest people I've seen when it comes to politics. And we just bonded instantly backstage because I love politics and three branches of government and anything to do with presidential history, whether you're Democrat or Republican. I love this guy right here. I want y'all to give it up, show your love. Right now, you can hear him on the morning show on Tom Joyner. He's also on Tom Joyner at time. Give it up, show your love for the one and only Jeff Johnson, y'all. Come on! Come on! Come on!
What's up, Detroit? That's horrible. What's up, Detroit? One more time. What's up, Detroit? That is much better. I want to thank AT&T for having me as a part of this 28 days. This is the fourth time that I've been a part of 28 days, and so I'm excited to be here. There's a couple of folks that I need to be able to thank, and so it is unbelievably important. Give it up for Ricky Smiley one more time. I don't want to be in front of you too long, but it is Black History Month. And because it's Black History Month, it's important to me that we deal fundamentally with where we are and, in the words of AT&T, really begin to look forward. But the challenge that I have with us looking forward is many of us clearly still don't know enough history now. And Black History Month becomes these 28 days where we do more complaining about the 28 days being short than we spend time diving into celebrating, sharing, in some cases, the limited history that we have. Right? It's history that makes other people feel comfortable, even ourselves. And so we don't even dive into, in a real way, what slavery was and was not. And I know Black folks that say, why we still got to talk about that? Because we ain't never really talked about it. If we did effectively talk about it, then there would not be confusion about what the institution of slavery was. Not some decision that one day white folks said, let's enslave Black people. Because there were Black people in America before slavery started. And as A. Leon Higginbotham writes in his book, In a Matter of Color, it was a systematic introduction of laws and policies throughout several states that ultimately pushed the country into realizing that it was economically viable to enslave African people for the purpose of free labor. It was not some out-of-the-sky decision. So when we begin to talk about 150 years since the Emancipation Proclamation, you can't talk about that without beginning to deal with white and Black folks' push to be able to change the laws and the foundation of this country that we would be better. Why then do we disconnect from politics in 2013? I'll get out of the way so that we can play again. But with one day left in Black History Month, we don't have time. And there's three things that we don't have time for. We don't have time, one, to continue to be politically disengaged. There are many of you in this room right now that voted for President Obama in November for a second time and have absolutely no plan to vote in a local election in the next few months. And don't care. When the reality is that President Obama in the next year is probably not going to make many decisions that's going to affect inner city Detroit or the bougie Negroes in Southfield. Or the now broke middle class people in Southfield that just can't move somewhere else. So I know where I'm at. The reality is that what's going to happen in local elections, in midterm elections, is drastically going to affect what happens in your community more than electing a president. Does that mean it doesn't matter? Absolutely not. We should be engaged in federal policy and elections. We should care about who's running for president, but you better be more concerned about who's running for mayor, who's running for county commissioner, who's running for school board, who's running for the state legislature, and don't do what you did in the presidency and give your vote away. Because black folks didn't ask President Obama for anything in return. I just want him to be elected. I don't want nothing. And your leaders are the same way, because they went to D.C. and said they didn't want nothing either, just a picture and a dinner. So they could come back to Detroit and show you that they met the president, but didn't come back with any promises from the federal government about what they were going to bring Detroit. And what I'm concerned with is making sure that those of us in Detroit, as we move forward, which is what this 28 days is talking about, that we begin to develop a political agenda that is connected to where it is that we've come from and what it is that we need. And so if we as a community understand that whether we're in inner city Detroit or whether we're in Southfield, we have fought too hard as a community to have the little that we have now. But that only happens because we get too lazy and then we only complain about the leadership we don't like and then don't build new leadership that we do. And so with all the young people from Detroit that you all have been able to send out of this community to be able to go to colleges all over the country, why are we not beginning to develop a talent pool that has the desire to come back to Detroit to provide substantive and pragmatic leadership? Even more than that, why are we not developing political leadership here? And I'm talking about gangsta hood youngins. Gangsta hood youngins on the block that be philosophizing. I've said this before, I'm gonna continue to say it because it's real and it's possible. Young people on the block that be philosophizing. Because when young people on the block be philosophizing and you got somebody else on the block like, I feel you, dog. That's the same thing as a political candidate standing on the stage and saying, this is how I feel, and somebody saying, I agree. So how do you take them youngins on the block to be philosophizing, take them and teach them that what they're philosophizing about is a political platform? Then take them and expunge their record the way these white and rich kids be getting their record expunged before they run for office, and then incubate them in a support mechanism. Take their boy that's got their back ride or die and teach him to be a campaign manager. Take their homegirl that's the only one of the three of them that got any money and make her the finance director. Take their homeboy that's on Facebook 23 hours a day and make him the technology director. Take their homeboy that be passing out flyers for the party and make him the director of volunteers. To incubate them and give them a stipend so they ain't got to hustle, and then train them for 18 to 24 months, connect them to a ground-based, local, grassroots institution of financing, and then run them for city council, for school board, for state legislature, instead of begging a Democratic Party and a Republican Party that don't have your best interest to be able to raise up young people from this community that they never talk to. So I'm not talking about, so often when we talk about black history, we think that people are simply supposed to go back and only look at activists, and only look at people that were grassroots mobilizers, and only look at people that pushed for social or political change. When if you love anything, there is somebody within the annals of our history that has done it already. And that can give you insight and best practices and show you what they went through and the groundwork that they laid. So if you are a businessman and you are interested, or woman, and interested in entering into corporate America and being able to navigate from one place to another, you don't start with Oprah or Bob Johnson. Because who is Reginald F. Lewis? Anybody? Reginald F. Lewis has 2 buildings named after him at Harvard Business School, but no buildings named after him at an HBCU. This seems strange, seeing as though he was the first and only African American to be able to navigate the largest merger of corporations in the history of America with Beatrice Foods for the tune of something billion dollars. Dying in his 40s. He was able to navigate corporate America in ways that certain folks can't do today. But we don't talk about him. Why? Because we don't read. And so again, I'm not talking about just knowing who activists were. I'm not talking about just knowing about Slick and Core and the SCLC and the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense and Angela Davis and Huey Newton and Bobby Seale and Fred Hampton and those that were willing to risk their lives to be able to make political change through grassroots mobilization and addressing politics. I'm talking about who were the people that understood that it doesn't just take place there. So whether it was Charles Hamilton Houston and Thurgood Marshall, who understood in the 1950s that the movement was not just about grassroots mobilization, it was about changing laws or whether it was about those that worked within business from as early as the turn of the century, because there were those as soon as the Emancipation Proclamation took place that were able to gain land and access to land to be able to be and build their own entrepreneurs. So in the 1920s and 30s, you had communities like Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, where the black dollar turned over 20 and 30 times because they didn't go looking for white folks' water or to be colder or ice to be better, because they recognized that the development of an economic base was as much as who we were about fighting for freedom. But what matters is, what are you going to do? See, AT&T's 28 Days is just an opportunity to be able to create a spark that says, let's look forward as we look back. This program is just an opportunity to be able to bring people to a venue, to be able to see Ricky Smiley and Elle Varner, to be able to make sure that we're able to engage with the community. But what matters more is, what will you do? What matters more is, how do you work with each other? Because really, when we start talking about collective work and responsibility within the African American community, it is not a cultural trait for us to hate each other. I don't care what people say about a Willie Lynch letter, and I don't care what people say about crabs in the barrel. I understand that we come from a people that only reason we made it as far as we did is because we worked together. Yes, you got haters, but you got haters everywhere. But you can't look at the communities and what we came from and think that we did that because you had a bunch of people all working by themselves to be able to get there. That's not who we are. We are a group of people who, in spite of what others wrote about us and in spite of what others said about us, work together to be able to save our families and our culture. So what will you do? Carter G. Woodson in 1926 created Negro History Week not as a time for us to study our history. He created it as a time for us to share and celebrate it. We forgot that. And we got so caught up in complaining about the short 28 days that we never understood that Carter G. Woodson and others selected February simply because it was honoring two individuals that Negroes at that time celebrated, which were Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, both of whose birthdays were in February. That's why it's in February. But what Carter G. Woodson, who was an unbelievably brilliant scholar, understood was that we needed a brief period of time in which to celebrate and share. The challenge is that when it's not Black History Month, if you're not studying, reading, sharing, talking, when Black History Month comes, you ain't got nothing to say. And that's why we find ourselves so ill-equipped, inept, and foolish in February. Because we ain't done no studying, and thus don't have anything to talk about, except I Have a Dream, and Barack Obama, and Rosa Parks, and the Civil Rights Movement. But what about the ancient empires of Ghana and Songhai and Mali? Empires that were larger than the Roman Empire, that began to establish trade in sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East. What about the institution Timbuktu in Mali, that opened its doors to the world and taught Islam and science and math before Socrates and Aristotle were born? What about Jesus? Because I don't know about you, but skin like burnt bronze and hair like lambs will sound like a brother to me. But what about Moses and the ancient Ethiopic Hebrews? What about those that existed before slavery and those that existed up until yesterday? What about our brothers and sisters that are diasporic? What about those like Patrice Lumumba and Kwame Nkrumah, that very much like Martin and Malcolm understood the necessity of providing freedom as they were presidents of their nations as they went into independence? What about the vast number of women in politics that were able to lead, or those that made sure that we built institutions? The point is that Detroit, there is an infinite amount of history that takes several lifetimes for us to be able to learn, which means we have no excuse over the next 11 months not to go hard. So once a month, if you watch a movie, watch a documentary about your history. At the dinner table, once a month, have a Who Am I dinner, where every member of the family introduces themselves as a figure in Black history and the rest of the family has to guess who it is. And add up points to see who wins something. It don't matter. Have a chapter of the month If many of us don't have the time or won't make the time to read a book of the month, read together a chapter a month from a book that's connected to your history, and then share it with the family. My point is, find a way and a place to make Black history a part of your everyday life. Otherwise, it won't be. And so let me say thank you so much to Detroit for allowing me to be here. Thank you to AT&T for allowing me to be a part of 28 Days. But thank you all so much for showing up and for the work that you will do as you move forward. God bless you.